What's up, folks? Casual Dad here, and I hesitated to even share this because this is a leak. However, I have not verified the source. I'm not going to tell anything about where I got this. Not going to share any information about it. This could be totally illegitimate. It could be legitimate. I don't know. What we are looking at is possibly the standardized loadout test versions of two of the pilots for the unreleased Gunboat for X-Wing miniatures. The Gunboat that was teased at Worlds 2 years ago, but was never actually released in any form of physical model in X-Wing Miniatures 2.5. Now, since official support for the game has ended, I'm a little bit more comfortable sharing this. I would definitely not have done that before. But I do want to go ahead and take a look at this and talk about it, because I haven't seen anyone else talking about it, which may be a bad sign, but we'll see. So anyway, what we're looking at right here, is two of the pilots that are returning from the original release of the Gunboat in X-Wing 1.0. I honestly don't remember what edition it came out in. It must have been 1.0, because and I had two, which is wild, especially now. My God. But yeah, so we're just looking at this. We've got Lieutenant Karsabi and Major Vynder, who are two of the main named pilots in the Gunboat originally. Obviously, these are both standardized loadouts, which we expect would have come in that box. We don't know, we have no way of knowing if this would also have included custom pilots as well, but let's just run through this. So these are, again, the Alpha Class Star Wing, also known as the Gunboat, affectionately, released from the TIE Fighter video game back in the golden age of LucasArts Star Wars video games. You know what? I would have called it the golden age once upon a time. Now there are so many great ones out there, I don't even know. But anyway, so primary forward attack, 2 red dice, 2 green dice, 4 hull, and then 3 shields. So it's somewhat equivalent to an X-Wing with less offense. However, it's a gunboat. It's really supposed to carry a bunch of weapons. So talking about the ability, there's the chassis ability that's true for both of them, which is prioritized weapon systems. Before you engage, you may gain a strain token to remove a disarm token. More on that later. And then Lieutenant Karsabi's ability, the Initiative 3 named one up here. So when you perform a reload action, the chosen upgrade recovers 1 additional charge. So you can reload 2 charges instead of 1, which is really good because the reload action sucks. And being able to reload multiple charges saves you having to do it more than once. So that's cool. On the action bar, we see Focus, Target Lock. We have Slam, Link to Red Reload. We've got Slam, Link to Red Target Lock, and then we've got White Reload. Now, the Slam actions are what make this thing so wild, right? So it has the Slam to Reload, which normally would mean you slam, so you move really fast, and then you get a disarm. But then this will give you the strain to go down to a single evade die, so you can still shoot. Or you can slam into a target lock, which makes this a phenomenal weapon delivery system. Although at Initiative 3, it still is a little bit hard to deliver. So already I really like the balance of offensive power, flexibility, speed, but also the risk, right? You don't want a 1 evade ship with 7 hit points. Yeah. Especially if you're vulnerable to any kind of jam, that lock could be jammed right off. So that is something to watch out for. In terms of the standardized loadout upgrades, to the right, we've got proton torpedoes on this thing, which slam into red lock that you can then take a strain to still fire this thing in the same turn. Is really good, but there's no option for a reload. So it's just you have the lock, but you don't have the focus as well. There's no focus link lock. There's no link between your focus and lock actions. So that holds this back a little bit. It doesn't have a way on this to double mod, which is pretty cool. But we'll get to another weapon in just a second here. So proton torpedoes, we've seen that. 2 charges, spend 1 to throw 4 attack dice at range 2 to 3, change 1 hit to a crit result. Again, you have 2 shots and it requires the lock to fire. This has a new weapon though, the saturation rockets, which is attack, spend 2 charges. If the defender is in your forward arc, you may spend 1 additional charge to roll 1 additional attack die. Now it's full 180 front arc, it throws 3 dice normally, but if you spend the 2 charges to shoot it and then 1 charge for the additional ability, you're throwing 4 attack dice if it's in your primary arc. Just a lot of text. Yeah, and then you roll that, and then after this attack, you may spend 1 charge to perform this attack as a bonus attack against a different target at range 0 to 1 of the defender. Whoa! Okay. Now, one thing I'm uncertain about there is if that... I don't think that gives you the option to get the 4 dice again. So you slam in, you red lock, you're stressed, you have a disarm, you take the strain, so now you're stressed and strained. You throw your saturation rocket, it's in your forward arc, so you throw 4 dice at it. So you've now spent 3 charges, because it spends 2 to shoot it, and then an additional 1 to add the extra die. and then you can spend your 4th charge to have a bonus attack. So this is a real Hail Mary where you roll in there, you throw 4 dice, you throw 3 dice, and then you have 0 of your 4 charges, but then you can tuck around, and because of Karsabi's pilot ability, you could recover that fully in 2 turns. But that still is 2 turns of not shooting. You better hope that that hits. And again, there's nothing on there that gives you a double mod. And then you've got Electronic Baffle, where during the end phase you may suffer 1 damage to remove 1 red token. I don't know how I would balance this. It's not very durable. It's very fast. It's got an interesting action bar with some cool abilities and a lot of potential, but I would feel like you have to run this with a coordinator because there is no option to double mod it. And in fact, there's a lot of incentive to use your actions to do slams and reloads instead of doing your focus, doing your target lock. So if you have a way to pass this guy locks or pass him focus tokens, be significantly stronger, especially with those multiple attacks. If you have a way to do that saturation rocket double shot with mods in both shots, game on. But otherwise, I would consider this not particularly good, but it is cool. And I like cool. We'll get to the next one. So that was Lieutenant Karsabi. Major Vynder is the next, who was the kind of scarier of the 2 in the original design. He's initiative 4, so just a hair more. Same stats, 2-2-4-3. And his still has that prioritized weapon system where you can gain a strain token when you engage to remove a disarm, which is cool. I believe it's an identical action bar, yes. And his pilot ability reads, after you perform a missile attack, you may perform a bonus cannon attack. While you perform this bonus attack, you may change 1 eyeball result to a hit result. So there's a free passive mod on that, which is really good. Now on a custom pilot, that would be even better because you could choose what combination of missiles and cannon you have. On this being a standardized loadout, it's whatever's on it. So I'm going to do the weapons first on this one. So we've got the heavy plasma missiles is your missile, which is attack, requires a target lock, spend 1 charge. After this attack hits, the defender loses 1 shield. So it is a plasma torpedo, but it's a missile. 2 charges on that, which I believe is less than this plasma torpedo, and it hits from range 1 to 3. So he can actually use that at range 1, which basically all of the ordnance out there is not possible. Oh, I missed that actually. The saturation rockets on Lieutenant Karsabi, they're range 1 to 2. So they are cluster missiles. So you've got your tweaked cluster missiles on Karsabi, and you've got your tweaked plasma torpedoes on Vynder, except they're missiles and not torpedoes. But yeah, same effect. So if you hit something, after it hits, before damage is resolved, the shield goes away, and then the damage is resolved. It also does not have the plasma torpedo thing where crits are neutralized before hits. So potentially can hit a lot harder, and it does have that wide range band of 1 to 3, which is pretty cool, especially because you stack that on top of the bonus attacks with the ion cannon. Attack, if this attack hits, spend 1 hit or crit result to cause the defender to suffer 1 damage, and then everything else becomes ion, so it's your standard ion cannon. Again, range 1 to 3. So this guy's got a really flexible attack band, being able to throw 3 dice at range 1 to 3 with the bonus ion cannon attack at range 1 to 3. Very good support ship. And then the other piece here too is the long range scanners, which says before you activate, you may spend 1 charge. It has 2 charges. If you do, you may acquire locks at any range until the start of the engagement phase. So you could call your shot, which is really good with those combinations of slam. So you could say, I'm going to target lock this thing at range 5, and then it won't be range 5 by the time I get in there, which is really cool because, again, Vynder has both weapons that go range 1 to 3, so you have a ton of range control there, and that is 2 charges, so you can use it multiple times. Now, near as I can tell, none of these charges are recurring. You've got 2 charges in that heavy plasma. Ion cannon is ion cannon. It's got all the charges in the world. 2 charges in long range scanner. And then on the top, again, we talked about the 4 charges in saturation rockets and the 2 charges in proton torpedoes. Now, that is all pretty cool. Neither one of these seems particularly good. I will eat those words should these things ever hit the table. Yeah, because I bet Vynder packs a real wallop, being able to shoot both the heavy plasma and the ion cannon. You can take off someone's shield before you then hit them with the ion cannon, so they could be ionized and unshielded there. It's initiative 4, so some of your AC ships won't have to worry about it. It's cool. I like it, and it's cool to see. So this is some of that development that we didn't know about. Now, there's another part of this that came out with this at the same time, and that is a spoiler that was something we had no inkling of whatsoever. And that is the TIE Phantom. Nobody had any inkling that this was anywhere in development at all, which makes it possible that this, again, is not a legitimate source, but you know what? It makes sense and looks legit. I gotta shout this out. This thing has no comments. This is a really cool looking cloaking TIE Phantom. If you're not familiar with the TIE Phantom, it is a cloaking TIE fighter. the TIE name still works because tri or triple also starts with a T. So it still works if it has triple ion engines on there, which if you look at the back, it does. Beautiful paint job on this. I will link this post in the description just if you want to follow up with this painter. So that's awesome. And that's a first edition version of Whisper, I believe. But introduced in the old school, again, the last one's introduced in TIE Fighter from the golden age of Star Wars games. This one was introduced in the Rebel Assault 2 game way back in the day, which is a terrible game, but had a pretty great story about being a Rebel crack pilot, learning about the creation of these things, a cloaking, shielded, hyperdrive-equipped TIE Fighter. This thing had a hyperdrive, shields, and a cloaking device. Like, this is a very scary ship in the Star Wars universe. And when it was released in first edition X-Wing, it was even scarier because you see it fuzzed out on the base peg there, but that sucker came with 4 base attack dice, which made it real dumb. Only has the 2 evade, but it has cloak, which makes it 4 evade, because that was the way it worked originally. The timing was a little bit better too, where it had every possible advantage for when it was able to cloak and decloak. And the key pilot, Whisper, was able to recloak after a hit, after throwing an attack that hit. And you see that Initiative 7 in 1.0 numbers, that was probably about a 5. But also in 1.0, we had the upgrade Veteran Instincts, where you could just add 2 to the initiative value, taking that from a 7 to a 9, making it one of the first ships in the entire game to shoot. So you could decloak, shoot something, or recloak, and it was a menace. Excuse me. Decloak, throw 4 dice at something, or 5 if you were range 1. Recloak. So, yeah. But no one had any idea that this thing was coming. So to see these packaged with the Whisper, or with the Gunboat stuff was really, really interesting. Super quick trivia piece before I move on from that. In the game Rebel Assault 2, sorry to go on this tangent, there was a cheat code you could enter that would change it to a Mystery Science Theater 5000, whatever the number is, version. So you had the little silhouettes of like R2 and 3PO in the theater seats, and all of the dialogue was changed to be this total spoof on itself. They actually wrote a script of the entire game that was a spoof of itself. Like old school Lucasfilm, man, or LucasArts. They did some crazy stuff back in the day. Moving on. So we have the 2 pilots for the Phantom. So this is something we had no inkling was in development. This is an unreleased, or a not re-released for 2.0 ship. The TIE Phantom was released in 1.0, was in the conversion kit, but never got a rebox release for 2nd edition, certainly not for 2.5. So seeing this makes it highly likely that the unreleased box that we didn't get, RIP, was actually a combo box of the Gunboat and the Phantom, which would have sold like hotcakes, man. Holy cow. But yeah, so let's break these down too. A lot more text, so bear with me. First is Echo. Again, the somewhat lesser of the 2 pilots is on the top, which has the tagline Copycat. Interesting. 3 forward, front arc only, 3 attack dice, which I'm very happy that the 2.0 conversion kit version of the Phantom has 3 and not 4 attack dice. Talk about a balance nightmare. 2 evade, again with the cloak action. 3 hull, 2 shields, so fairly squishy. Still has shields, so it's pretty good. 1 recurring charge, and they both have the chassis ability that is Stygium Array, which is the Stygium cloaking device. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Stygium, whatever. After you decloak, you may perform an evade action. So you decloak, evade. I believe you decloak in the system phase, so you get a free evade, which is awesome. At the start of the end phase, you may spend 1 evade token to gain 1 cloak token, which is always something about this. That is something that was key to Whisper, who we'll talk about in a second, and all of the Phantoms, is they are able to decloak and recloak in the same turn, which is something no other ship is able to do. I guess you can, right? Can you do that? But to be able to do that outside the action step. So like Dooku, for example, could decloak and then use his action to recloak, which doesn't do any good. These suckers can decloak, shoot, and then recloak in the end phase, which gives them the mobility, but they don't get the defensive bonus because they're not cloaked when they are shot at. Because in the engagement phase, they're still decloaked if they choose to decloak. And then you either spend your evade token on defense, or you keep it to recloak. So it's interesting. I like the balance on that. It's not anywhere near as powerful as it was, but still very good. Now, the pilot ability in Echo is after an enemy ship at range 0 to 1 performs an action on its action bar, you may spend 1 charge to perform the same action, treating it as white. Whew, that's good. That's like Darth Vader double action levels of good. That's crazy good. With the downside being that you have to be at range 0 to 1 of that ship. That makes a very quick, flexible, dodgy ship much more predictable if it's able to do that. So that gives you a lot of incentive to run 2 Phantoms together because they can keep up with each other, or another ship that can keep up with this to give it that bubble range and give you a lot of extra actions. But that is so cool. Wow, yes. Wow. I was shocked when I saw that because that's not. I don't think that was the original ability Echo had, or if it was, I just forgot, and that wasn't as powerful in 1.0 as it is now. But that's it there. Got the upgrades on the right. Silent Hunter. After you decloak, you may acquire a lock on an enemy ship in your bullseye. So this thing potentially could focus, lock, evade, and so you decloak, get the evade token. You target lock after you decloak, and then a friendly ship nearby does the focus action. You get that as well, and then you still have an action because that is all outside of your action step. Wow. Yeah, okay. Stealth Gambit is the other talent on here, which is after a friendly ship performs an attack that hits an enemy ship in your forward arc. If you are cloaked, you may gain a strain token to remove your cloak token and perform a bonus primary attack targeting the defender. Wow. So if you have an initiative 4 or 5 pilot, you have them shoot first, decloaks your Echo, who can then shoot, and Echo still has the option to do that free evade action because the Stealth Gambit decloak still triggers Stygium Array because it doesn't give you a timing window on that. It's whenever you decloak. So if you decloak, yeah, but you don't, oh no, excuse me, yes it does. Okay, so you remove your cloak token, which is not the same as decloaking. So Stealth Gambit does not trigger your free evade token. So it will not, if you did that, it would remove your opportunity to recloak in the end phase using the unused evade token. Okay, cool. Remove your cloak token, perform a bonus primary attack targeting the defender. But still, you fire the shot and then you shoot again. It's one of those things where you can really play with the game with that. That is very cool. Oh, and here it is. Yeah, okay. At the end of the engagement phase, if you are strained, gain an evade token. So if no one shot at you to take off your strain token, you can then gain the evade token, which you then can use. Ooh, wait. The timing on that is weird because end of the, okay, there it is, end of the engagement phase. So right before the end phase, you can gain an evade token, which you can then use to recloak should you choose to. That's really good. It's a sneaky, nasty little thing. Then it's got manual ailerons, 2 charges. While you decloak, you may spend, there it is. This is the original ability Echo had, was to be able to decloak the Wibble with decloak. While you decloak, you may spend 1 charge, and you've got that 1 recurring charge. And that is the only thing that uses, no, okay. So that uses, no, sorry, that has the 2 separate charges. Okay, so the pilot ability uses the 1 recurring charge. This has 2 non-recurring charges. You may spend 1 to use the 2 bank left or 2 bank right template instead of the 2 straight template, which gives you a really flexible decloak. And since you decloak before you move, you decloak in the system phase, that makes this a very tricky ship and super fun to fly. That's really the big thing about Echo specifically as the Phantom is that extra mobility, being able to do that. Now this only lets you do it twice per game. I mean, you wouldn't do it that much more than that anyway. So awesome, love it. That is a cool ship. I skipped the action bar. Has focus, evade, barrel roll, cloak. Technically no linked actions, but we just read all of these abilities that give you extra tokens and attacks. So in terms of action economy, Echo has some pretty strong advantages over Whisper, who we will now talk about. Same stat line, 3-2-3-2, has 2 non-recurring charges on Whisper. Still has the Stygium Array. After decloak, you may perform an evade action. At the start of the end phase, you may spend 1 evade token, again 1 cloak token. Whisper has the pilot ability. After you perform an attack, you may spend 1 charge to perform a cloak action. So it has the same ability that lets you, once you attack, you can then cloak. And at initiative 5, you're highly likely to have at least a chance to get that shot off before you're shot by lower initiative ships. So you are a little bit vulnerable at the higher initiatives and then can recloak before you take shots from anything that is shooting after you. And then you got the pilot talent. Without a trace, after you gain a cloak token, you may remove 1 red token. Ooh. Where would you get red tokens? Okay, wow. Wow, that's nice. So you could do a red maneuver, and we don't have the dial on this. I assume it's the same as the dial that's in the conversion kit. Without a trace, after you gain a cloak token, you may remove 1 red token. While you are cloaked, enemy ships cannot acquire locks on you. You jerk! Okay, now that's not as powerful as it sounds on paper, right? Because you decloak in the system phase, then there's the entire activation phase where you could be decloaked, where ships could acquire locks on you so they could still have the locks. But at any point where you choose not to decloak, or there's any way to gain a target lock after you shoot, those will not work on you because they can't gain the locks. And if you're combining this with jams, you can remove some of those locks. Makes it a very defensible ship. That's cool. I like that. And no limit on it either. Dang. So if you stress, so say you do a red maneuver, you do a K turn, you shoot something, you then can spend one of your charges to cloak, which then triggers without a trace, so you can remove the stress. And then you're unstressed after having done a K turn, so you can do it again. Now, those are not recurring charges. You only have 2 for the entire game, but still, that's very cool. But yes, can only do that twice per game. Okay, wow. And that has the system upgrade relay system. After a friendly ship at range 0 to 2 performs a target lock action, you may acquire a lock on the same object. Woo! Another free lock on you, okay. And note also that neither of these ships actually has the target lock action. So both of them have ways to gain target locks. Echo has 2, both from Silent Hunter and then also from the pilot ability. This is how Whisper is able to get locks as well. You may acquire a lock at the same object. After you perform an attack that hits, you may spend a lock you have on the defender. If you do, another friendly ship at range 0 to 1 may acquire a lock on the defender. Wow! So not only are you able to acquire free target locks, you're then able to pass them on to the rest of your squad. Again, though, these are ships that don't like flying with other things unless they fly together. The idea of these two flying as squad mates is really cool, because they could keep up with each other, aside from the manual ailerons that Echo has. So... but that's really cool. They could be passing actions back and forth. This is cool design. I like these ships a lot. Okay. But then the final upgrade here is Stygium Reserve. Stygium, whatever. After you fully execute a maneuver, you may spend 1 charge to perform a boost action even while stressed. And we don't see the color on that. We can't tell if that's a red or a white boost, but there is a boost action there. And that's a single non-recurring charge. So it has a one-time use afterburners with no speed limit. So you could do a 1 straight and then boost. Yeah, that's pretty good. I really like these. I would love to see them in play. There are rumors that Infinite Arenas may make these available as print-and-play cards, which would be so cool. Especially since we are unlikely to ever see official versions of them, at least in the foreseeable, indefinite future. So, anyway, super cool. I wanted to talk about these. There's always a chance I'll have to take this video down for whatever reason, and I sincerely hope that sharing this doesn't get anyone in any kind of trouble, but I have personal bias in wanting to share these because, again, this shows that there were things in development that we hadn't seen announced or teased, which has been one of the big pieces of contention in the community, is that whether or not AMG was actually doing anything in the back end. I am quite certain that they were, and of course, so this feeds directly into my bias, but a lot of people said that they didn't have anything in the works. We've never seen anything else, so this lends some credence to the theory that there was an actual logistical reason why they weren't able to continue with development. But still, it's still hard to kind of justify the decision. So anyway, here we are. Super cool stuff. I am going to play these at some point because we have the... why not? It's here. So anyway, there's that. Hope you like it. Cheers.